Hello, folks. Salim Omar here. Welcome to this e-commerce money map podcast. I've got a show with me. It's my partner, and we're going to be talking about an important area, and that's sales tax. So this is going to be kind of a multi-part episode about talking about sales tax. Now, the reason we decided to do this episode on sales tax and the one following is because sales tax it's a complicated topic that we see recurring for our clients. And what we've done, over the past several months is we wanted to simplify this information and bring it to you, the e-commerce business owner, in a useful way. And to do that, we first created the e-commerce sales tax pocket guide. And it was extensive research, getting to understand and seeing all the nuances of sales tax. And that guide, and it's available on our website and so forth, it explains the ins and outs of sales tax in a practical way for e-commerce business owners. From this guide, we wanted to share that knowledge through this conversation, through this episode. And so this is a conversation between myself and Shaw, about sales tax, what Nexus is, the various types of Nexus, which affects it, and so forth. And then in the following episode, we're going to delve deeper on other sales topics. So first things first, Shaw, welcome.
Hey, Salim. I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. Great. Now, who is this episode about sales tax relevant to? Shaw, kind of give us the high level on that.
Well, it's going to be relevant to anyone concerned that they might have a responsibility to pay, to collect and remit sales tax. But specifically, I would say Amazon FBA sellers and anyone utilizing third-party fulfillment, as well as anyone selling multi-channel or off of typical marketplace facilitators, meaning sellers on Shopify, BigCommerce that aren't just selling on Amazon, eBay, Etsy type websites.
Great. That's awesome. Now, why is this important from your lens? And you're an e-commerce business owner yourself for the last decade. What have you seen? Why should e-commerce business owners pay attention to this area?
Well, a lot of this stuff is fairly new within the last few years, and not paying close attention to this and not taking it serious it can be a costly mistake. Take an example of an e-commerce business that has, say, $100,000 in taxable income. This business hasn't been collecting and remitting the tax as they should have. So they are now liable for the tax themselves. Pick any state.
So what you're saying, a business, and the illustration you're giving is $100,000 of taxable sales. If they don't collect sales tax, the business becomes liable to pay the tax. So this would ideally be something you would get from the customer.
Collect from the customer.
Now it's coming from your pocket. Understood.
Exactly. So if you pick any typical state, a conservative number for what that tax percent would be, 5%. So on that 100,000, the business now needs to pay $5,000 out of their revenue. That's just the tax that wasn't collected. There's also now, distractions to yourself and your employees, costs for your employees to deal with the audit, possibly accounting fees and legal representation, as well as the fines and penalties that come along with that audit. So we're talking easily another $5,000. So what could have been $5,000 collected from your customers now becomes a $10,000 cost to your business for not having taken sales tax Nexus serious.
Yeah. I mean, it digs into, it takes away from the profit right there when it should not have, right? A $5,000, and this is a simple example, $100,000 in taxable sales, 5%, 5,000 would be the sales tax that should have been collected from the customer. If you miss that, now it's, that 5,000 becomes 10, you say 10,000, I say more like, it could be even north of that. So it could be even $12,000 or $14,000. when that's not necessary, because no need to pull that from your net profit, your take home pay. And so the reason that Shaw and myself feel so intimate about this and really want to bring this knowledge and education, and let as many e-commerce business owners know about all the nuances relating to sales tax. And in this episode, we're going to go into a couple, two things, and show, if you want to go there, like what are the two things we want to go over, today, we want listeners to get from this episode.
Well, I want to give a kind of a brief history and overview of what Nexus is first. And by doing that, I want the two takeaways to be that physical and economic nexus are not the only types of nexus. It's a common mistake we see from our clients who are very smart people, but this happens. They think of physical and economic nexus as the only things to consider. So that's the first point. There's more than just physical and economic. Second point would be that people often overlook within physical and economic, they overlook important nuances and things that can cause nexus within the physical and economic nexus. Those are the two takeaways I would like people to have from this podcast episode.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, let's go right into it, and perhaps a quick definition, and maybe even some history about, let's start off with, say, the definition of nexus, and then, kind of, we hear, you read about, the Quill case, and, the Wayfair case. So kind of give us some very high level history of that. And I know a lot of people misinterpret these rules or these laws. And yeah, kind of, let's start there.
Sure. So the basic definition of nexus is it's any connection to or involvement in a state that creates an obligation to collect and remit tax. So basically, it's your level of business, if it's substantial enough within a state that you need to collect and remit sales tax to that state. So the history of sales tax nexus, sales tax itself started in the 1920s, but Supreme Court case that really drilled sales tax, the first one would be in 1992 with Quill versus North Dakota. In that case, the Supreme Court ruled that a business must have physical presence in the state for the state to require collection of and remittance of sales tax. So this is a big case, right? It set up kind of the early days of e-commerce being kind of a wild west of sales tax, with most e-commerce businesses not being liable for thinking about collecting, remitting any type of sales tax.
Got it. So in 92, the Quill Corp versus North Dakota establishes the importance of physical nexus, that, hey, this is what the definition of nexus is. If you're physically there, you got to pay sales tax, right?
Exactly.
Got it. Okay, cool.
Great for e-commerce back then, in the early days of e-commerce.
Yes.
Now the next big change would be the Supreme Court case in 2018, widely talked about, South Dakota versus Wayfair. In this case, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of South Dakota, and this basically reversed the Quill Corp versus North Dakota case, and that now sales taxes can be levied on on remote sellers that are doing over 200 transactions or $100,000 in sales. Basically, it meant that economic nexus is now important besides just physical nexus.
Got it.
Another result of this case is marketplace facilitator laws, where companies like Amazon, eBay, Walmart.com, if they're acting as a marketplace and they're facilitating sales for sellers, then they're responsible for collecting and remitting sales tax for the seller.
Got it.
So these are the two big Supreme Court cases, right?
Yeah.
What's much less discussed is that these this taxation of sales tax on e-commerce businesses, it started happening before Wayfair. It started happening in the form of affiliate Nexus. Specifically here, Amazon was using affiliates to generate sales for Amazon.com within different states. And the states were trying to enact laws that would allow them to collect sales tax, allow them to establish Nexus for Amazon in those states due to Amazon's affiliates. And this was a sort of a war with Amazon refusing to have affiliates in some states so they could avoid these taxes, and eventually going to a court case in conjunction with Overstock.com against the state of New York. And interestingly, Salim, you were actually on a cover of Accounting Today in 2011, and just underneath your pictures, if I understand right, is on the cover of Accounting Today. And just underneath your picture, it says "Strap States Fighting Amazon War." What that headline was referring to was this affiliate nexus case with states enacting affiliate nexus laws, Amazon trying to fight that by disbanding its affiliates, and eventually going to court with New York, which it lost, and that set up the affiliate nexus. So we hear all the time about Wayfair and Quill, economic nexus and physical nexus. But this affiliate nexus stuff is not widely talked about, and it's not getting the light that it deserves.
And it affects more e-commerce businesses more, right? In addition to physical and in addition to the physical nexus or the economic nexus, you've got the affiliate nexus that brings in a new pool of people that would need to start paying sales tax because of that nexus.
Exactly. For example, if you have a website and you're selling on a Shopify store, you have just under the economic nexus threshold. Say you have for New York, you have $400,000 in sales in New York. So you're operating just underneath the economic nexus threshold. But you have a list of affiliates that are directing traffic to your website, getting paid commission, maybe getting paid click-through type commission or a click-through nexus. Then you are actually liable for sales tax. Because of that, even though you think if you're looking just at economic nexus that you don't have nexus there.
Yeah, this is really very, very good and important what you just shared there.
So yeah, Salim, that's the one of the main 2 points is that there's more than just physical and economic nexus, right? My next main point, the takeaway from this episode, is that when you look even just at physical and economic nexus, there's more to it. There's things that are often overlooked. So let's take physical nexus first. It seems fairly straightforward, right? What types of questions would you ask? Do you have an office? Do you have a warehouse? Are you physically located in the state? What's often overlooked is, do you have inventory in the state? Do you have FBA inventory in the state? Do you have any third-party fulfillment? Someone who's storing inventory and shipping it for you? Do you have dropship suppliers whom are facilitating shipments for you from that state? And these questions are often overlooked. And again, these can create nexus where you think otherwise. When it comes to economic nexus, this is complicated by how states are counting the economic nexus. So some states, they look at just your taxable sales. So for example, I mentioned marketplace facilitator, you're selling on Amazon and most of your sales are coming from Amazon, but you also have a Shopify store. Well, you think Amazon's selling and I'm paying sales tax on that. Amazon's paying it for me on my behalf. So therefore, I only need to look at my Shopify sales, but that's not always true. Many states do include the Amazon sales as a factor of your economic nexus. So when you're calculating your total taxable sales, in some states, you need to consider that. Other states, you also need to consider mm, wholesale sales, for example. Any of your wholesale sales where you have a tax exempt certificate, you still need to add those in too.
So this was very good, Shaw. I mean, what you're saying is that even within physical and within economic, there's nuances which complicates this further. I really appreciate, I mean, you taking a subject that's very technical, very in-depth, and sharing it with us and kind of giving us, it in a way that we can, get our hands around it, right? We don't, as an e-commerce business owner, you don't have to be an expert, but you want to know where the landmines are. You want to kind of have the bigger picture of what you should, what you should be aware of. And that's kind of been the purpose of this particular episode, and really the e-commerce the pocket guide that we have created, goes much more in depth there as well. Two things, sure. Let's kind of do a quick summarization, a recap before of what we have talked about, and then what's coming up next, and then we'll finish off here.
Yeah. So recap of this episode, I'd like to recap the two main takeaways. Physical and economic nexus are not the only types. You need to consider affiliate and click-through nexus. You got to take a holistic look at your business and see, is there any activity I have in my business that is going to create a tax liability in any specific state beyond physical and economic? Then when looking within physical and economic nexus, it's important to understand for physical, do I have inventory? Do I have third-party fulfillers? Do I have drop shippers that are establishing nexus for me in any specific states? And am I calculating my economic sales totals correctly for economic nexus? Those would be the two main takeaways of this podcast, this episode.
Yeah, that's great. So, yeah. Awesome. And what's coming up next in our next episode?
More about sales tax, Salim. Specifically, I think it's important to understand some product taxability, topics on product taxability. We can discuss, we'll be discussing when and how to register for sales tax licenses, the importance of calculation and collection automation, and the importance of getting that right, and also a big money saving tip for some businesses, a way to utilize something that's out there that's going to save them a lot of time, effort, and expense.
That's great. Looking forward to that. Folks listening to this, I hope you got a lot from this episode. We appreciate you, Shaw and myself. Thanks for tuning in, and see you on the next one. You take care. Thanks, Shaw.
Thank you.